Please welcome our next speaker, Dian Taylor, a Director of Pre-Sales. Today, she'll be presenting D365 Sales and LinkedIn Sales Navigator together. Please stick around after Dian's session for a live Q&A.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for voting for my session. And I also wanted to thank everybody at DynamicsCon for making this possible. Thank you again also for joining my session here on Dynamics 365 Sales and LinkedIn Sales Navigator together. My name is Dian Taylor, and I work for RSM as a pre-sales director, and I'm a Microsoft Business Apps MVP. Feel free to check out my YouTube channel or my website at D365 Goddess, follow me on Twitter, or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Most of you have probably heard of the integration between Dynamics 365 Sales and LinkedIn Sales Navigator, but you might not have the details on how everything works. Now, keep in mind that I'm not going to cover all of the features in Sales Navigator in this session. I'm only going to cover what's relevant through this integration with Dynamics 365 and LinkedIn Sales Navigator. With this integration, we'll be able to move data between applications, which means that we will have to enable and configure this integration in both LinkedIn Sales Navigator and in the Dynamics 365 application. I'll talk about what data can be synchronized a little bit later in this presentation, but with data flowing into Dynamics 365, this gives us more options to perform actions on the data. For example, we can use Power Automate to automate processes such as setting up alerts when a LinkedIn activity is created in Dynamics 365. We can report on those LinkedIn activities and so much more, obviously. But before you can do this, there are a couple of prerequisites we need to consider. Microsoft Dynamics 365, Microsoft Dynamics 2016 or Dynamics 365 on-premise is not supported, unfortunately. And you need to have a Microsoft Relationship Sales subscription for Dynamics 365, or you will need to sign your team up for LinkedIn Sales Navigator Team or LinkedIn Sales Navigator Enterprise. In order to configure Sales Navigator, you need to have a Sales Navigator administrator and a team member seat. The browser that you're using needs to have JavaScript enabled, and you need to disable your pop-up blocker for the Dynamics 365 domain. Now, by default, LinkedIn solutions are not automatically installed. So an administrator needs to install the solution package before other users can work with them. They can start this installation by navigating to the business management area and clicking the LinkedIn Sales Navigator button to start the installation. This will launch the installation window. And once the installation is done, users can go back to the previous screen and click on LinkedIn Sales Navigator again. This will take you to a screen where you can enable the integration and turn on photo refresh. Lastly, system administrators can turn on the LinkedIn Sales Navigator controls on forms. These tabs are hidden by default, and admins also have the ability to add widgets on a form by adding a form control. Now we need to set up the connection from Sales Navigator to Dynamics 365. In this setup, you can enable write back from Sales Navigator to Dynamics 365. Write back allows users to save information created in Sales Navigator back to Dynamics 365. And I'm going to discuss those details a little bit later in this presentation. After you completed this setup, you need to allow about 24 hours for both systems to sync. And once you have successfully connected Dynamics 365 and Sales Navigator, you will need to set your Sales Navigator CRM settings for the organization. All of those options are accessible from the same page. Now, after the sync has been configured, you can also configure data validation. When data validation is turned on in Dynamics 365, there's a couple of things that's going to happen. A new option set, that field is called MSDYN_org change status. And the name for that field is not a company flag. That field is added to the contact table in Dynamics 365. The values in this field are no feedback, not a company, and ignore. So the way that this works is when the current company of a LinkedIn contact does not match the account the contact is related to in Dynamics 365, this field will be set to not at company. Now, keep in mind that this validation only happens for contacts related to accounts, and contacts related to opportunities that are owned by Sales Navigator users that have CRM Sync enabled. So if you don't have that sync enabled, this is not going to happen. And this validation between LinkedIn and Dynamics 365 data occurs every 24 hours. So this is not updated real time, right? It takes 24 hours. Now, besides that option set field that I just mentioned, it will also be visible on the account org chart. So it's not just on the form, but also on the org chart. And there's 4 new views that will also be added to Dynamics 365. There's going to be 2 opportunity views and 2 contact views, all opportunities at risk. There's contact views, all contacts not a company, my contacts not a company, etc. So 4 views total. Now, photo refresh, and that's kind of what you see over here, updates the contact records in Dynamics 365 with, of course, the most recent profile picture from LinkedIn. And this is also a daily sync. Now, data validation also helps with the matching of Dynamics 365 records with LinkedIn records or LinkedIn profiles. The Dynamics 365 fields that are used to match lead and contact record are first name, you can see it on the screen, last name, title, company, country, phone, and email. Now, for the matching of LinkedIn organizations with Dynamics 365 account records, the following fields that you see on the screen here are used. So company name, all of the address fields, website, phone, industry, and number of employees. So I guess it's kind of needless to say that obviously the more data you're going to have populated in those fields, the more accurate those matches are going to be. Now, users also have the ability to manually match a Dynamics 365 record to a LinkedIn profile. This could happen if there is no match found at all, or if there's multiple matches, right? Or maybe there's an incorrect match. You can change that yourself manually as well. And then we also have some additional configuration options. So we can create contacts from Sales Navigator to Dynamics 365, and I will show you how to do that as well. We also have something that's called Team Link, which allows users to let them view and search for their team's connections. There's also something that's called Smart Links, which allows us to package and share files and then track engagement with those files. Like, think about somebody accesses a file that you have stored through Smart Links. And I'm going to get into the details on this a little bit later in this presentation, and I'm going to show you a demo on that as well. But now let me just show you how easy it is to connect LinkedIn Sales Navigator to Dynamics 365. So you can see there's a Connect to CRM button that you will click. And that was going to ask you, okay, do you want to connect to Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics CRM? So you're going to click CRM. You're just going to put in your subdomain, right? The rest is already the crm.dynamics.com is already in there. Then you're going to click on Continue. You're going to sign in. And that's really all you have to do. And we're going to close the web page, and that's it. So that's how easy that is. Now let's take a look at a demonstration. I'm just going to go into my environment. And I am here inside of Sales Navigator, as you can see. And since I'm an admin in this environment, you can see that I have access to this admin tab. So I'm just going to go ahead and click in there. And you can see here now that I have a lot of objectives on this screen. I can sync my licenses with CRM. I can activate my team. I can connect my CRM, etc. So I'm just going to click on Manage CRM. This is where you will set up your sync for CRM. So you're going to see in a second, right? I'm already connected, so there's nothing for me to do here. But there's some additional settings on here as well, right? We talked about this earlier, that we can have these records, right? Sales Navigator leads associated with data from Dynamics 365. Now, if you click here on Account Center, this is where you can see all of your users. You can invite them from here. And this is where, remember I told you earlier that we wanted to make sure that the CRM sync was turned on. Well, there is a CRM sync for the entire organization. And then you can set it up per user as well. So this is where you can do that. From here, obviously, right, you can manage permissions, turn on the CRM sync, remove a user, or manage licenses from here as well. Now, again, there's some additional things here as well, right? If I go back here to Admin Home, you can see here there's usage reporting, there's additional admin settings here, which we kind of talked about earlier, that has some of the features here on this side as well. Now, let's take a look. We just saw on the slide how we can connect Sales Navigator with Dynamics 365. Now let's take a look in Dynamics 365. So what you will do is you will navigate here to Business Management. And then if you click here on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, this is where your integration settings are. So you can see here, this is where you can enable that integration. You can turn on photo refresh and enable those LinkedIn updates as well. As you can see, it already says it's CRM Sync and the data validation needs to be active for that. All right, so let's go back to the slides. Now, let's talk about the data that's going to be synchronized from one application to the other. As you just saw, the synchronization can be set up bi-directional. So let's talk about what's actually being pushed over. So I'm going to start with what will be synchronized from Dynamics 365 to LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Now, I actually received several questions about this, and I believe that a lot of people think that as soon as a connection is made on LinkedIn, that this data is going to be pushed to Dynamics 365 as a contact record or a lead. And I also heard people say that all of their connections will be pushed over to Dynamics 365, or that users have the option to choose which LinkedIn profiles are synced to Dynamics 365 in bulk. Well, unfortunately, none of this is true. And honestly, we probably wouldn't want that either, right? I have like about 3,000 or maybe 4,000 contacts. I probably don't want all of those contacts inside of my Dynamics 365 instance. So let's take a look at the synchronization from both perspectives. Accounts and leads are saved for all open opportunities where the stage is greater than the stage chosen in the CRM sync preferences. And the stage is actually set by the admin for all of the users. This enables Sales Navigator to automatically deliver updates to users on the most important people and organizations. Users will see a CRM button within Sales Navigator for those CRM imported records and other records that are matched with these LinkedIn Sales Navigator profiles. Users have the ability to send emails and messages from LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Through the integration, you can perform those actions from LinkedIn Sales Navigator or from within Dynamics 365. You're going to see a copy to CRM checkbox on the message window, which obviously will determine if an activity is created in Dynamics 365 as well. When a LinkedIn contact responds to an email or message, an activity in Dynamics 365 is not created, but this is something that's on the roadmap. So again, currently, if you send a message and you check that box, that's stored in Dynamics 365. When somebody responds to that message, you will not see that in Dynamics 365. Now, you also have the ability to create notes in Sales Navigator. You're going to see a similar copy to CRM slider there as well. And keep in mind that notes that are created or updated in Dynamics 365 are not going to synchronize back to Sales Navigator. Now, phone calls can be made directly from the Sales Navigator mobile app. And when the call ends, a pop-up window will be shown asking if the user wants to save a phone call record in Sales Navigator. This pop-up will also have that slider on the bottom that the other ones had as well, right? And if you set that to yes, then again, that activity will be created in Dynamics 365 as well. Now, you have to keep in mind that the activity will only be tracked if Sales Navigator finds a match, right, for the person that you just called inside of Dynamics 365. Now, Smart Links replaced something that was called Point Drive in Sales Navigator in May of 2020. Now, this feature allows Sales Navigator users to share content, this could be files and documents, right, with your customers and your prospects. Now, when they access the content, the users will receive a notification email, and that view, or whatever you want to call it, is going to be visible on the contact record in Dynamics 365 as a Smart Link presentation viewed activity. Users can share Smart Links outside of Sales Navigator, but they also have the ability to send them through LinkedIn messages. Users can create these Smart Links from within the context of an email or a message, right, by clicking the link icon on the bottom left side of the screen. Now, again, keep in mind that Smart Links are available for both the team and the enterprise licenses. However, you're going to need the enterprise license for that right back in Dynamics 365. Now, LinkedIn Sales Navigator also allows users to create a contact record in Dynamics 365 from a LinkedIn profile. So no more copying and pasting, right? That's what we used to do, copying from Sales Navigator to Dynamics. You don't have to do that anymore. But before you can enable this functionality, you need to make sure, again, that you have Crm Sync enabled and the automatic auto sync all seat holders with CRM is set to yes. And this is, again, in those admin settings, which I will show you a little bit later as well. So if you go to the admin settings and then to the CRM settings, you're going to scroll down and you'll see the buttons that allow for an admin to turn contact creation on or off. Now, besides obviously enabling that contact creation, you can also require an email address to be mandatory in order to create the contact in Dynamics 365. And then lastly, there's the ability to select the lead source value that should be associated to contacts that were created from Sales Navigator. This is actually looking at the lead source code field for the contact table in Dynamics 365. So any values that you have configured in that field are going to show there. Now, users can create a context from Sales Navigator by opening the LinkedIn profile in Sales Navigator. And when you click on the ellipse on the right-hand side, then you can see that Add Contact to CRM option. And when you click that button, you're first going to have a duplication check that's going to run to see if that contact is not already in Dynamics 365. And then obviously if a duplicate is found, then you just have to match them. And if there's not a duplicate contact record in Dynamics 365, then you can just move forward and create that contact record, right? So this is kind of the fields, the form, I should say, that comes up. So you can see here, some of those fields are the account field. That's going to be looking at account records in Dynamics 365. Opportunity, that's going to be filtered opportunities related to the account that you entered. Then you can fill out a stakeholder role if you selected an opportunity. Then you have first name that will be pre-populated by Sales Navigator. Last name also pre-populated. Job title, country, all of those are pre-populated. And then that email address and a phone number as well. Now, like I said earlier, if you first select that account, those are accounts in Dynamics 365, right? So if that account doesn't exist, you will first have to go and create that account record in Dynamics 365. Now, users can also save the LinkedIn profile as a lead in Sales Navigator, right? That's that checkbox that you see over here. Now, besides write-back capabilities, we also have the ability to view LinkedIn profile data directly from within the context of a Dynamics 365 record. And we can do this by configuring a widget. Now, users will be able to access LinkedIn functionality directly from Dynamics 365 through this widget. So think about being able to send an email or being able to send a message or an introduction request, or just seeing what you have in common with the particular person that you're viewing in Dynamics 365. Now, enabling the integration between both applications will add a tab with, and you can see that right over here, with the forms in Dynamics 365, but you will also be able to put those widgets on the form directly, and that's kind of what you see on the screen. Now, these controls can be added to the lead, the contact, the account, and the opportunity forms. And you currently today, you actually need to edit this in the classic form editor. So basically what you need to do is you're going to drag the last name of, for example, for the contact record or the lead record, you're going to drag that onto the form. And then you're going to go to controls, right? You can see that right over here. I will click on controls, and then you can pick up this LinkedIn Sales Navigator lead, which is the member profile, or the account, which is that company profile. All right, let's go back to a live demo. So I'm going to show you some additional settings here in admin settings, right? If I scroll down a little bit further, we already saw this. This is what I was talking about earlier. At which stage does your sales team consider an opportunity to enter your pipeline? So you can see here, I have different fields on here. This is, again, looking at a field, right, in Dynamics 365. Then this is where you can turn on that CRM data validation, right? The allowing of creating records, contact records in Dynamics 365, right? Again, it says it here as well. You need to be able to have the Crm Sync for all seat holders to be set to yes, and for your users to be signed into CRM, obviously, to connect them. The lead source. Here is your lead source. This is the field that I just referred to earlier on a contact record. That's that lead source field. I'm actually going to see if I can pull it up here, right? So you can see here the only values I have in this field. My lead source code is Sales Navigator and other. If I go back here to my screen, look at that. It looks at those values. So when you add or change the values in that field, you will also see that change right over here, because that's what it's pointing at, right? Whether or not to log smart links, log messages and emails, whether or not we want to log calls or notes. And there is some ROI reporting on here as well. Again, where do you store the value for one opportunities? Again, you can see a list of fields here because this is connected to my Dynamics 365 instance, and you can pick that from there as well. Now let's take a look, and I keep going back here to my PowerPoints. Let's go back here. And let me talk about those widgets and how we can add them, right? So this is, as you can see, my last name field on my contact record. And if I look here at controls, you can see that I added this LinkedIn Sales Navigator member profile. Then I can go ahead and configure these options that I have here, right? Do I want to show that top card? Do I want to show the icebreakers and what that looks like? I'll show you that in a second as well. Do I want to show connections that get introduced, related leads, etc.? This is how you can do that. What I would recommend is to not display the label on the form. And what that then looks like is this, right? This is that widget. This is now showing me, right, that widget with that dynamic or with the LinkedIn Sales Navigator profile information directly here on my screen. Now, the other thing that we have here, I talked about this a little bit earlier as well, is this LinkedIn Sales Navigator tab, right? Again, if I click on this, this has that same control on there, right? Everything is enabled. So that was the same setup as I had on that front page, right? Then if I look at the company profile, this is the company name field, that lookup field. And if I look at controls, now we are using the LinkedIn accounts lookup control, right? And again, we can configure this. And then the last one is LinkedIn InMails. Same control, but guess what? Everything is set to no, except for what you see over here, right? Last name, first name, email, everything else is set to no. So now let me show you what that looks like. Let's click here on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Let me actually go ahead and link that, match that, I should say, right? So again, this is that same LinkedIn member profile that we saw on the front page. The LinkedIn account profile looks at the lookup, right? That's how you can match them. And then this is my LinkedIn InMail, where I can send messages to him directly from within Dynamics 365. And as you can see, right, it has that copy message to CRM. Now, let's take a look how everything works. Let's start here with the LinkedIn member profile, right? I can see his profile. If this is not an accurate match, I can say not the right person, right? And I can look for somebody else. Let's see if I can match him back. Now, of course, I can't find him. Oh, here he is. This is him. So I just matched him. So that's how you can do that manually. We have Icebreakers. This is looking at the connections that I have in common with this person, right? So we have 6 connections that we have in common. If I click on this next button, it's now going to show us if we have any organizations that we used to work for in common. We did. We both work at RSM. Groups, LinkedIn groups that we have in common. We are both in the same LinkedIn groups, 3 of them, right? So that's kind of those icebreakers that I can use to start a conversation with him. If you click on more, you also see here related leads. So this is basically, I can set up my sales preferences in the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And this is showing me other folks that are very similar to this particular guy. Again, also based on my preferences. Now, I don't have anything in here for him, obviously. So let's now take a look at the Get Introduced. This allows me to reach out to other connections that I might have on LinkedIn that are also connected to Angel. Because again, think about how this warm introduction is going to be probably more effective than just cold calling somebody, right? So I can kind of hover over these connections that we have in common. I can see here, right? For example, Rachel is also connected to him. They both used to work at RSM. That's really all we have in common. Oh, Victor actually has more in common with him because he is also in 3 mutual groups with him, right? So what you can do from here is kind of decide who the best person is to contact. And then when you're ready, you can click on Ask for Introduction. This is, again, going to launch that LinkedIn Sales Navigator window. And now I can just start typing in a message directly from within here. Let's go back to that context. So that's how you can get introduced, right? Now, the LinkedIn account profile. You can see here that I just basically linked him to RSM, right? Well, if you go back here to my summary screen, you can see here that he is linked to a Datum corporation. So this is not right. This is not correct, right? The LinkedIn profile does not match the account that this contact belongs to. So what you can see here, this is the field that I was talking about that was added by the application through that integration, right, that I turned on. So these are the values that I talked about earlier, right? No feedback, not a company, ignore. So because this A Datum Corporation does not match the LinkedIn account, the system is going to set it to not at company. Again, this is running every 24 hours. This is not real time. But the nice thing with this is that you can go to your opportunity where you can see a view if there's a contact that doesn't belong to that organization anymore, right? That means that opportunity is in jeopardy. Same thing for contacts. You can go ahead and look at those contact views to see who are the folks that no longer belong to the same company, right? And then lastly, what you would also see, I'm actually going to go here and let's see here, where is the Datum Corporation? You can also go to the org chart of the company that this person belongs to right now, and that will also show you that this person is no longer at that company. Let's just give it a second here while this loads. Okay, so here's my org chart. And you will see in a second, here we go, right? That big red dot here next to Angel. So I can now click on that. And that will open a side pane, and it's telling me you might want to verify your contact details. Is this person still at this account? Because it doesn't look like he is. So what I can do then is I can change the account, right, in Dynamics 365 directly from within here if I wanted to do that. And then I can go ahead and update that contact. So that's kind of what that looks like. Now let's go back to the contact. Now earlier we were talking about the fact that we can type in a message here and then click this copy message to CRM. I can send that. Let me just do, let me know if you have any questions. Let me go ahead and send that. Now, this is pretty immediate. Let me go back here to my front page. And let me refresh this real quick. And there you go. So this does not take 24 hours, right? This is you're sending a message, and as soon as you send it, if you check that button, right, to save it in Dynamics 365 as well, you can see it's there immediately. So no waiting for that. Now, I also talked a little bit earlier about smart links, right? So let's take a look here in Sales Navigator. So you can click here on smart links. And the smart link itself is just a container, right? You can see here, I can create a new smart link. I can say quotes for whoever, I don't know. And then I can add content like this. I can do files. I can do, sure, let's do a sales forecast, right? Whatever. And then you can say, do you want people to be able to download? If so, you can do that, and then you can create that. So then you can copy that link, and then you can give people access to that, right? You can send it in an email, you can send it through a LinkedIn message, whatever you want to do. Now, the interesting thing is that when they actually access, right, when they click on that link, you're actually going to be able to see that the content has been viewed. So that's what you see over here. You can see it says Smart Links content viewed from Dian Taylor. That was quote for Angel Castellar. That's actually, let me go back here, right? That's this guy that I created earlier today. So since that now is a record in Dynamics 365 or in Dataverse, we can use Power Automate Flow, right? If I want to get another notification or I want to get an email or whatever, right? So this is very, very interesting. And I can even open this up too and get some additional information on that as well, right? We can see here what the description was when I sent this. That was actually from the message. And there is all of my information directly inside of Dynamics 365. Now, you can also take a look at some of those analytics here. If I click on analytics, it's going to show me, right, who accessed that link, when they accessed that link, and for how long they accessed that link. So that's, I feel, very important as well, very interesting. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you in Sales Navigator is basically, let me go back home here. Oh, I actually want to go to list. We already said that we can, right, have these records, that data from LinkedIn Sales Navigator that can be synchronized over to Dynamics 365, but we said we could also do that the other way. So that's kind of what you're seeing over here. This is an auto-generated list of all of my CRM contacts and my leads. So if I drill into this, these are all of the contacts and leads that are assigned to me that are matched in Dynamics 365. And here you see the button, right, that we talked about earlier. If I click on that, that's going to open up the record in Dynamics 365. Now, let me go back here to my home button, and I'm going to, again, go to Angel, because Angel is fake, right? Here is that CRM button. If I click on that, that is going to open his contact record in Dynamics 365 that he's linked with, that his profile is linked with. And here we are again, back inside of Dynamics 365. A couple of other things we can do here, right? We can go ahead and look at notes. You can see here, there's a bunch of notes here. I can add notes. Now, this says make this note private or public. That has nothing to do with Dynamics 365. That's in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. If you make it private, only you can see it. If you make it public, then other folks that are on your team will be able to see those notes as well. And then, of course, I can do the same thing, right? I can copy that to Dynamics 365, as you can see directly from within here. So a couple of more things here. I just wanted to show you this pricing slide as well. And this is Microsoft Relationship Sales, what you see on here, right? You can see that what that means is that you basically get two things for the price of one, right? So you get LinkedIn Sales Navigator and Dynamics 365, right? So this is obviously a very nice combination, a license combination. The only thing you need to keep in mind is that your organization, in order to purchase the Microsoft Relationship Sales solution, or MRS as we call it internally, your organization needs to have a Microsoft Enterprise agreement in order to purchase that. And also that there is a 10-seat minimum. So if you're saying, yes, we are, we do have that Microsoft agreement in place, but we only want 5. Sorry, it has to be a minimum of 10. Now, if you don't have that Microsoft Enterprise agreement, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you can't get it. It just means that you cannot take advantage of this combined license that comes with the relationship sales solution. You can still purchase LinkedIn Sales Navigator separately, obviously. And I kind of wanted to show this as well. This is some of that pricing, this Sales Navigator standalone pricing. Do check the website, right? I have the link on there. That's https://business.linkedin.com, sales-solutions, compare plans. Take a note of that. So, but definitely take a look at that. So again, if you don't have that enterprise agreement, you can purchase Dynamics 365 for sales and then LinkedIn Sales Navigator separately, right? So that's basically what you do. The only difference is that you're not going to be able to, again, have those cost savings of buying those combined together. I do want to say, and it doesn't say here on the slide because it doesn't say it on the website, but that's why I do have that information for you. The last time I checked was that the enterprise was $1,600 annually per user. And that actually has that 10-seat minimum as well. For the other ones that you see on the screen, the professional and the team licenses, there is no minimum for that. So keep that in mind as well. And then what comes with that, right? So again, this is kind of also on that same website that I'll pull up in a second, but what do you get with that, right? So professional, you can see here, you get a couple of email messages that you have access to per month, so many leads that you can save, team, as you can see, unlimited smart links, additional in-mail messages that you have here. And remember, those in-mail messages are really only for people that you are not connected to, right? The regular messages is you don't have to pay for that, right? If you're connected already. So you can kind of see, right, the CRM integrations, sharing of certain lists, et cetera. And an enterprise gives you most of that. Again, for some of these features that we discussed today, you do need that enterprise license for that for Sales Navigator, like some of the write back. I believe the creation of a contact also requires that enterprise license. So think about that, obviously, as well. And then here again, that link that I just wanted to make sure that we mentioned to you guys, make sure that you check that out because that does have all the details for you guys as well. Now, thank you so much again. Thank you, Dynamics Con, for organizing this, and have a great day, everybody. Thanks again. Bye. Hey guys, thank you guys so much for joining me today in my session. And I also wanted to thank all of the sponsors and the organizers of this wonderful event. It's been amazing. I also wanted to go ahead and actually introduce Tim. He's actually with LinkedIn.
It's on this side. Hey, how's it going? Thanks, Dian. Nice to virtually meet everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much for moderating and being able to step in during this particular session. So we have a couple of questions here. I was already kind of chatting away with people and answering some of their questions. So I saw here, do you need a sales enterprise application, not professional, or did that change? I'm not sure exactly what you... Are you talking about from a Dynamics 365 perspective, Debbie? All right, while we wait for Debbie, let's see. Chris was asking, let me see, I'm actually going to scroll up here. If there's a difference between installing LinkedIn Sales Navigator from the business management settings, which I showed you right during my presentation, or if you can do that in the Power Platform Admin Center. I haven't tried that, so Chris actually took it upon himself he's going to try that, and then he's going to let me know, because I'm not sure, I never tried it. Then we also had some questions about, which I already answered, but for the people that are just dropping in right now, what is the cost for LinkedIn Sales Navigator? So I had a slide on that, and somebody was asking me, oh, so this is not a tenant license. No, it is not. So you will need a Dynamics 365 license and then a LinkedIn Sales Navigator license. And there's some different tiers for those as well. Tim, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, there's a ton of different tiers. And I've worked here for about 7 years on and off, and it's even confusing for me. If you think about basic LinkedIn, right, linkedin.com, it's like your online resume. It's where you go to network, connect with colleagues, old classmates, old bosses. It's great. You can think of it as like your Gmail. Now you got Navigator, which is where me and Dian sit, and there's 3 versions. There's the professional version, which I equate to a bicycle. There's the team version, which is kind of like the hybrid motorcycle. It's like an e-bike. And then you have the enterprise, which connects with D365. That's the motorcycle. The pricing is a little different. Usually for a professional version, which is an individual version, usually built for like entrepreneurs. If you're on a sales team of like 1 or 2, real estate agents, a lot of times you use it. That's about $80 a month. We haven't had a price increase in about 23, 24 months almost, like 2 years. So usually we do that every 2 years. So typically I would say it's probably going to go up to like $85 a month. And then the team and enterprise version, those are customized based off of the term of the agreement and the volume of seats purchased. But list price, to give you ballpark, team is around $100 per user per month, and enterprise is around $123 list price. But depending on the size of your sales org, it definitely varies.
Yeah, and there was another question actually it was the same question from Debbie that she was kind of explaining in regards to Dynamics 365, if they need a sales enterprise license or a professional license. Now, I think it worked with both, but I just want to verify with you.
It does. There's some level of functionality differences, such as something like data validation, or the communication between Dynamics and LinkedIn is a little more robust. Usually you can think about it on the team version, it's just like an iframe, like a snapshot of LinkedIn data within the CRM. And the enterprise version is a little more communication between the 2 platforms.
Yeah, exactly. Great. So let's see if we have any other questions. I don't see any right now. So I figured, and this is also one of the reasons I invited you to this call, and because you're awesome. But let's talk a little bit about what's coming in Q1 of 2021, right? A lot of people probably already saw some of the new functionality being pushed to their sales Navigator instances, right? But I'm actually writing an article about this as well. So you guys can always take a look at my website, D365goddess.com. So there's a couple of things, like I showed you earlier, that in Sales Navigator, you're going to be able to see lists with data that's synchronized over from Dynamics, right? So you can see a list of leads there and a list of contacts, right? Which is one list. And then you have an account list as well. So we now actually have the ability to view opportunity data in Dynamics 365 as well, which is, I love that feature. Have you seen it yet, Tim?
I have, and I also love that feature. As a sales rep, we are inherently not the best with data quality in CRM. And oftentimes, the biggest hurdle I see with my customers is they get a Navigator seat, they're all excited, and then they don't log in because they don't want to do the manual work up front. So what Dian was talking about was Dynamics will now push that information up into LinkedIn, which has never happened before. Finally, we were able to push information up to LinkedIn so that if there's an active opportunity that you're working, or one of the leads at an account that you're trying to close switches jobs, all that information is going to be populated to the top of your newsfeed in Navigator, so that you don't have to go crazy when you get your seat and manually typing in all your saved leads and accounts. It's just going to be at the snap of a finger. It's going to recognize whatever opportunities your names are attached to. Those are going to be the accounts that are saved in the Navigator, which are going to make your life a lot easier.
Oh yeah, I really love that. And I saw that I was able to click next, because you have, like you said, you have some of the information in there. You click on it and you see all of the opportunities listed related to that account. I was like, oh my goodness. Especially if you think about the fact that 40% of productivity is lost because people have to go and navigate from one application to another one. So you can kind of see where this really gives you some value. So I was very excited about that one. I also have here a question from Anne Marie real quick. I see this is for online clients, but are there any LinkedIn options available for on-prem customers? I knew the answer to that. I'm just not remembering. So I'm just going to poke Tim again.
So the on-prem won't have, because it's not the cloud integration, it's not going to be the one-to-one sync that we were talking about during the demo. But it's still, it's still a standalone product. Sales Navigator is worth its weight in gold without the integration. So you can still do all of the functionality, such as like searching for leads, saving leads, messaging leads, finding accounts. You can do all that if you're on-prem. You just won't have the one-to-one sync as far as communicating information from LinkedIn to Dynamics and vice versa, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. And then I also noticed we already have the ability to create a contact, right, from LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and then you can just push that data into Dynamics 365, which is great. I mean, that saved us so much time here at RSM. We cannot create accounts yet. Maybe that's something that's coming a little bit later. I don't know. But we do now, with this new update, you also can now create leads in Dynamics 365 from LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I have to say, I just love, the way that you can do that very quickly and very easily, because, we don't always want to save a contact, right, Tim?
Not every time. I mean, it depends on how you're mapped out. If you're an account-based approach, then you might want to just find, based on your territory. I did a demo this morning where it was so specific that this rep had zip codes that he wanted to just focus on. And in particular, he wanted to find in this zip code which companies were hiring the most engineers, because apparently that was a good buying sign. And we ran that search just for accounts, and then kind of reversed back and went from account to then find leads. So it kind of depends on how you're mapped out, if that makes sense.
But, yeah, it does. It does. And you're absolutely right. You have organizations that are not even using leads, right? So in that particular case, you're not going to need that ability, obviously. But we work with a lot of clients that do want to separate that out, right? So then I think it's a great feature. I also wanted to talk a little bit about, I think, the importance of being able to use a networking tool like LinkedIn, because I think it's so much more than that, right? A lot of companies, even today, still have a big problem in regards to trying to keep their data accurate and up to date, right? So this is usually also when I talk to clients, because I think it's such a great tool, being able to use that integration together, those applications, because who is going to tell you when they're leaving, right, an organization, when they're moving from one organization to another one? You don't know. Your sales reps don't know. Maybe you know that the person left, but you don't know where they went. So, I mean, LinkedIn Sales Navigator is going to be able to keep your data updated for you, right? I kind of demoed that as well, but I just wanted to talk about that a little bit in regards to, right, keeping that data clean. I mean, I don't know, Tim, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, that's a perfect point. Especially in the first quarter of the year, we find that 60% of key decision makers are switching jobs. And I'll even question that stat because I think it's been even higher with COVID, whether it's reorgs or mergers or people finding new jobs, or maybe they're just home spending more time on LinkedIn and social media. I'm not exactly sure, but the amount of times that I've found an account that I'm working or in my book of business where a key leader has moved jobs or gotten promoted, I don't want to spend my entire day sifting through free LinkedIn or reading press releases or combing through their 10Ks. Navigator's just going to tell me, and it's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for me so I can get out and actually sell. So if you haven't already, I highly recommend downloading the Sales Navigator app, the mobile app in the Apple Store. And it's kind of going to do a lot of that like notification stuff. And if you're one of those people that don't want a million notifications, I totally get that. You can go into your settings and kind of customize it, but it saved me a number of times when people have left or joined the companies I'm trying to sell to.
Yeah, and I love that. And you're totally right. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to also demo the mobile application, but that's a really good point. I also kind of think that a lot of people probably don't realize that what the numbers are in regards to creating more opportunities to sell, right? I think that the number here is like there's 45% of sellers that if they're using a social platform like LinkedIn, they are, 45% more likely to create more opportunities because you can use your network. And another feature that I'm really excited about, because I mean, we see it ourselves, our salespeople internally use it. I use it. We see it all the time. You're going to be able to see not just depending on your setup, right? But you can set this up, not just who is in your network, but you can also, by using Team Link, you can see if there's anybody in your coworkers network that has a connection there, right? And then you can make that warm introduction versus a cold call, because I mean, cold calling, it's 2021, right? We don't really do that anymore. What's your experience with that, Tim?
Team Link is the best. It's the best feature we have in Navigator, and especially if your company is investing in a corporate account. Essentially, you're just mining the collective Rolodex within your colleagues' network. So there are three main ways to get a response or a connection acceptance request on LinkedIn. Number one is referencing a mutual connection. So Team Link is huge there. Number two is common alma mater. So it's actually super timely because I don't know if you guys are sports fans. I'm a huge sports fan. College basketball, March Madness is right now. So there's 68 teams that have fans right now that probably want to talk about it or maybe like reminisce on their college days. So that's number two. And number three is work overlap. So if you have some sort of work overlap history, whether it's you used to work at the same company, if you reference that in an in-mail or ask for an introduction, you're going to have a lot higher likelihood of getting a response. But to go back to your question, Dian, I mean, Team Link is amazing. And we've actually upgraded it because I'm guilty of this myself. My network is, for the most part, fairly legit on who I know and don't know, but I am connected to some folks that I'm not really that comfortable asking for introductions from. So what we've done is we've actually stack ranked the Team Link introductions based off of the strength of those connections. A lot of that's probably an algorithm based off of click rates, but a lot of it too is if they used to work together at the same time, we'll highlight that, or if they studied at the same school at the same time, we'll highlight that. So makes you just come across a little better.
And that's so important, right? I mean, like I said, even just going in there and being able to see who your connections are and who, I mean, I just think that, to me, that's just crazy. Now, I also wanted to talk a little bit, I can talk all day, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between LinkedIn and then LinkedIn Sales Navigator, because I don't really think that a lot of people understand that the free version, right, LinkedIn, that we use, that we don't have to pay for, obviously, that it's more of like a business social networking tool, right? And Sales Navigator, that's the paid version, is really more of like a business sales tool, which allows us to do all those things that we just mentioned, right? We can track our leads, we can track our contacts, we can track our opportunities or related context to the opportunities, accounts, etc. So I just wanted to make sure that people understand what that difference is. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, no, I mean, free LinkedIn is awesome. I think I saw a site, some stat that we're the 9th most trafficked website in the world right now, which is crazy. But you can think of that as like an online resume and where you would network with people and it's great. But if you're in a sales role or customer facing role, you don't know everyone you're trying to sell to. So what Navigator is, if you think about, I don't know how familiar you guys are with like the talent acquisition arm of LinkedIn, but it is it kind of kept the lights on for us at LinkedIn for the majority of at least when we first started. You can't do your job in recruiting if you're a headhunter or you're an HR without LinkedIn Recruiter. Well, we're kind of pivoting to that with Sales Navigator. It's all the goodness, all the data that we have on LinkedIn, and we have a ton of data. We know where you live, where you worked, who you're connected to, but we built a super smart, super kind of customized, bespoke experience, which is going to be customized to who you care about, who your territory is, who your accounts are, and who you're trying to go after, and hopefully do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So it kind of sifts through the noise of free LinkedIn, which is great, but really kind of highlights the lowest hanging fruit, whether it's common connections or mentioned in the news or they get funding. So it's just the best version of what we have at LinkedIn for sales and marketing folks.
Great. Thank you so much, Tim. And thank all of you guys for joining us today. Thanks to the sponsors, thanks to the organizers. And again, thank you very much, Tim. And we hope to see you guys very, very soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye, guys.